The dinner rush was in full swing at La Belle Table, one of the city's most elegant restaurants. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, and soft jazz floated through the air as guests laughed and clinked glasses. At a corner table near the window, a black family of four settled in with warm smiles, looking forward to a rare night out together. The father, Marcus, was calm and composed, his wife radiant in a navy dress, and their two children wide-eyed with excitement at the fancy setting. They didn't know their night would be interrupted in the ugliest way. Their waiter, a young man named Kyle, approached with a stiff jaw and narrowed eyes. From the start, his tone was cold, clipped, almost sneering. When Marcus politely asked about the specials, Kyle muttered something under his breath, loud enough for the kids to notice but not quite clear enough to confront. The children exchanged a glance but stayed quiet. Dinner began awkwardly. Kyle moved slower for their table than any other, rolling his eyes as he scribbled orders. He, accidentally, brought the wrong appetizer. And then, when Marcus gently requested it be corrected, the moment happened. Kyle slammed a pitcher of ice water onto the table. The cold liquid splashed over Marcus's lap, soaking his shirt and dripping onto the floor. Gasps rippled through the dining room as nearby guests turned to stare. The children froze, horrified, while Marcus's wife grabbed napkins, her hands trembling. Kyle smirked. Oops. Guess accidents happen. For a long second, the restaurant seemed to hold its breath. The insult was blatant. Ugly. Marcus slowly rose from his seat, towering over the young man who had just humiliated his family in front of dozens of strangers. But instead of shouting, instead of cursing, Marcus's voice came steady, calm, even gentle. Follow me, he said. The waiter scoffed but obeyed, perhaps expecting to be threatened in private. Instead, Marcus led him through the restaurant, past the rows of watching diners, past the kitchen doors, until they stood in a quiet office lined with framed photographs. In them, Marcus was smiling beside his family, and shaking hands with celebrities, city leaders, and business partners. On the wall, a gleaming plaque read, Founder and Owner, Marcus Hill. Kyle's smirk vanished, his face drained of color. Marcus sat behind the desk, folding his hands. This restaurant, he said quietly, was built so families, all families, could feel safe, welcomed, and respected. And tonight, you failed that. Not just with my family, but with everyone who saw what you did. The waiter stammered, his arrogance dissolving into shame. For the first time, he understood who he had been serving, and more importantly, who he had been disrespecting. Back in the dining room, Marcus returned to his table, brushing off his damp clothes. The crowd was still buzzing, whispers traveling across the floor. His children looked at him with wide, searching eyes, waiting to see what their father would do next. And Marcus, without raising his voice, without letting anger consume him, sat down, smiled at his kids, and asked, Now, what were we talking about before the water? The tension broke. The children laughed nervously, their mother exhaled with relief, and the other guests watched in stunned admiration. Something unspoken had shifted in the room. The waiter would never forget that night. Neither would anyone who witnessed it.